I'd like to give a special thanks today to METV and to our sponsors, Kaiser University and the Mosaic Company, and of course to Lakewood Ranch for hosting us and for this wonderful lunch. Let's give them a round of applause. So at this point, I'd like to ask everyone to please turn off your cell phones and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this point, I would like to recognize our dignitaries and our elected officials. So if you would all please stand when I call your name, and we'll hold our applause until I've named everyone. We have Florida State Representative Jim Boyd, Florida State Representative Greg Stubbe, Manatee County Commissioner Vanessa Baugh, Manatee County Commissioner Betsy Benak, Manatee County Commissioner Larry Bussell. I haven't seen Larry. Couldn't make it today. Manatee County Commissioner John Chappie. Manatee County Commissioner Robin DeSabatino. Robin, not here. Manatee County Commissioner Michael Gallen. Oops, sorry, he couldn't make it either. And Manatee County Commissioner, last but not least, we have Carol Whitmore. Yeah. From Congressman Vern Buchanan's office, we have Sally Tibbetts and Gary Tibbetts. Thank you all for coming. Our speaker today really needs no introduction. I'm sure that everyone in this room knows Congressman Vern Buchanan. U.S. Representative Vern Buchanan is the only Florida member of Congress to serve on the powerful House Ways and Means Committee, which has jurisdiction over tax policy, international trade, health care, and Social Security. A self-made businessman, Buchanan understands that America's economic strength flows from its entrepreneurial spirit and pro-growth, free market policies. Buchanan has worked tirelessly to enact tax incentives and help small businesses end burdensome regulation and limit frivolous lawsuits. In his fourth term, Buchanan is an outspoken advocate of reforming U.S. tax code to make it simpler and more fair. He serves on the Trade and Health subcommittees on Ways and Means. As chairman of the Friends of Panama Caucus, Buchanan will continue his efforts to help Port Manatee grow and capitalize on the upcoming expansion of the Panama Canal. A strong fiscal conservative, the Congressman's signature bill is the Buchanan Balanced Budget Amendment Act. He also introduced legislation to stop automatic pay raises for members of Congress until the budget is balanced. Congressman Buchanan's previous committee assignments include the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, the House Veterans Affairs Committee, and the House Small Business Committee, where he also served as the ranking member of the Subcommittee on Finance and Tax. Vern Buchanan grew up with 5 siblings in a blue-collar household in a small town near Detroit, Michigan, Inkster, I believe, which is close to my hometown. He served 6 years in the Air National Guard and worked his way through college. The self-made businessman is a respected leader in Florida's business community. He chaired both the Florida Chamber of Commerce and the Sarasota Chamber of Commerce. He was also a member of the board of the U.S. Chamber, and in 2005, he was inducted into the Tampa Bay Business Hall of Fame. In addition, Congressman Buchanan is a dedicated philanthropist, committing himself to diverse community causes, including the Boys and Girls Club, the Community Foundation of Sarasota County, the Walk to Cure Juvenile Diabetes, the American Heart Walk, the Mote Marine Laboratory, and the Ringling Museum of Art. He's a husband and a father. Congressman Buchanan lives on Longboat Key, Florida with his wife of more than 30 years, and Mr. and Mrs. Buchanan have 2 grown sons, Matt and James. So we have a lot going on in Washington right now, and I'm very excited that I'm going to be traveling to Washington, D.C. next week with the Chamber Legislative Committee, and Vern is going to host us at his house for a cocktail reception. So we're very excited about that. And this is just another one of the ways that the Manatee Chamber of Commerce is working all the time to try and improve the business community and improve our quality of life. And so anyway, I'm happy to be a part of that. So the House returned to the legislative session this week. There are a lot of important issues they're facing, including the debate over military action in Syria, the budget battle, including whether to raise the debt limit, and one of Congressman Buchanan's priorities, tax reform to help boost the economy. So with that being said, I would like to invite Congressman Buchanan to the podium.
I noticed Tom mentioned he's excited about coming to Washington to work on some policy stuff, or was it the cocktail at my house? But again, Tom, thank you for your leadership, and Bob Bartz, and everybody probably knows this, but this has been rated one of the best chambers in the country. I think 3 or 4 times they've won Chamber of the Year in Florida, and 1 time nationally. I can't imagine that with all the chambers that are in the country. So let's give the Manatee Chamber of Commerce a big round of applause. What I'd like to do is, I'll mention a few things, but more importantly, I'd like to take your questions or comments on any issue you really want to talk about. Let me just take 1 second to talk about Syria. It is a big issue. We weren't planning on doing a town hall meeting or anything on it initially, and then it came where we've had thousands of calls into our office in Bradenton and Sarasota and Washington, so we decided 2 days ago to do one, and we'll be doing that tomorrow at USF at 11:30, and now we're looking for almost another venue because of the demand. A lot of people are very upset. Most of you know my position. I don't think we have any business getting involved in a civil war. I feel very strong about it, but more importantly to me, I want to hear from you and any thoughts that you might have on it. I can tell you, in terms of the thousands of constituents that have emailed or called in our office, 90 to 95% feel the same way that I do. But the strike in terms of Syria has not been taken off the table. I'm glad that they've kind of hit the pause button and they're looking at this other option in terms of Russia being involved. I'm not sure where that goes, but the President's made 2 things clear. He's leaving the strike package on the table, and he might go with or without Congress. Part of the challenge he's got is he doesn't, I don't believe, have the Congress behind him, at least in the House, and I don't think he's got the American people behind him. So he's got a tough uphill battle, but he's decided to put it to the Congress. I can't imagine, someone asked me just a few minutes ago, if we did vote on it, which we kind of expected to vote, would he still go ahead? I can't imagine he would go ahead, but he claims that he's got that option. So if he's got that option, then I want to make sure I'm doing everything I can to let as many people get their voices heard on this issue as we can. That's 10:30 tomorrow at USF. Let me just talk about a couple issues. I'll run through them fairly quickly. As Tom mentioned, my biggest issue has been back then and today, and probably the biggest reason that I ran, everybody runs for a different reason, but is when I look at our debt and deficit, when we've been running the last 4 or 5 years over $5 trillion in debt. When I got there, and someone said, well, you're the problem. But anyway, when I got there in 2007, we were $8 trillion. Today, we're just closing $17 trillion. So when you look around the room, we're slowly going to be at $20 trillion in debt. If you look at the cost of money normally, historically, is about 5%. You're talking about $1 trillion in interest before you pay out one benefit to anybody. Based on today's revenues, which are record revenues, that'd be almost 40% of your receipts. So that's why I'm concerned that we need a constitutional balanced budget amendment like 49 out of 50 states have. I'm so proud of our state representatives that are here today. They get it. They understand it. They made the tough calls the last 4 or 5 years. We don't, but we need to, because we're going to leave our kids and grandkids in an impossible situation. And it also puts us at a big disadvantage, I think, to do business worldwide. The other thing I just want to touch on is that being on the Ways and Means Committee, you'll see usually right underneath that, it's the Tax Writing Committee. The last time we put together a tax bill was 1987, 25 years ago. A lot has changed in 25 years. There's all kinds of what they call tax extenders, tax loopholes for various industries, probably hundreds of them. And so I'm one of the guys, I actually chair a committee on, or a working group, I should say, chair a working group on pass-through entities, small, medium-sized business and pass-through entities for the Ways and Means Committee, because the thought is a lot of people are open to lowering the corporate rate from 35 to 25. I've heard the president, I think, express 28%. But I've made it clear to the chairman and everybody else, you can't lower the corporate rate to 25 if you're not going to do the same thing for pass-through entities. So I've been pushing. So we are working on a tax bill. We're writing a tax bill. And the biggest thing is to simplify it and kind of lower the rates without still looking at it being revenue neutral. So we want to get them both down to ideally 25-25. The people at the top would still keep the same percentages, so there wouldn't be a difference in terms of that. But the idea, you say, well, how are you going to pay for it? We're going to have to look at a lot of tax loopholes, but make it simpler and fair. The tax code is 74,000 pages. It's incredible. I talk to people that are small businesses, they always got to call the accountant. Or some people in business, they got to call the tax lawyer. And it's just too complicated, and we're trying to simplify it, and there's a lot of aspects of it. And I love Apple. I got my Apple phone, and we got a lot of great companies that do business abroad. You got a 35% tax rate in corporate America, but Apple's paying 5%. You got a lot of companies only paying 17, 18%, where you have retailers like Locally that make money that might be paying 32. So we really need to work on that. Now, people always say to me, you know, will you get a bipartisan bill? I'm hopeful that we can. I believe we'll pass it out of our committee. We'll pass it out of the House. And the reason I say that, because they understand that from an international standpoint, a lot has changed in 25 years. There's a lot of ways you can legally put together tax structures where you can lower your rate like Apple has. Because Apple, they had the CEO up in Washington. He says, I'm paying, you know, part of my job is to minimize my tax liability legally. So they've got high-paid lawyers and high-paid accountants around the world. So it needs to get addressed. We need to level the playing field. And I think it makes a lot more sense. We have the highest corporate rate in the world. 1989, my wife and I were in Hong Kong as part of a business group. And Milton Friedman said that Hong Kong had the purest form of free enterprise in the world. They had a flat tax, no deductions, at 20%. I was over there about a year or two ago in Hong Kong talking to the Minister of Finance, and he said, I said, are you still at 20%? He said, no, we just lowered it to 16% of flat rate. I said, 16? I said, why 16? 20 seems more unfair. And he says, we got to be competitive. And that's what I mean. We're in this world economy, we have to look at tax code. And by the way, I'd like to get any of your thoughts or ideas in terms of taxes, because we are going to be putting forth a bill, I would say, within the next month to 6 weeks. The other thing Tom mentioned, I'm on the subcommittee for trade. I got kind of back into it, but got asked. I chair the Florida delegation. We're the third largest population in terms of a state. We have the third most members with 29, including the 2 senators. So I chair that or co-chair that with Elsie Hastings, who's a Democrat. But the first thing we did, the first meeting I had was on ports and trade, because through our ports it's about $68 billion worth of economic activity, 14 ports. And of course I have a big interest in Port Manatee because of what's happening in Panama. That's why I'm chairing that caucus, because I think we could double the amount of good paying jobs out there. We got plenty of capacity and plenty of opportunity. We got great leadership and our chairman of that committee out there. But my point is, we need to make sure that we do everything we can for Port Manatee. Because one thing we learned through this past recession, depression, however you want to look at it in terms of real estate, the last 4 years, we needed more economic diversity. The port gives us real economic diversity. So I'm very optimistic about the port going forward and in terms of trade in general. The other thought is, when Washington talks about jobs, a lot of them up there talk about unions. When I think of jobs, I think of small business. You can't get jobs unless we help create an environment, a culture that helps small businesses be more successful with less regulation, a better tax code that minimizes that, minimizing frivolous lawsuits, and that's really my focus. That's kind of where I think I have as much clout up there as anybody, because that's the world I've lived in for a long time. I really think small business creates 65–70% of the jobs. When I chaired the chamber here locally, it was about the same size as Manatee Chamber, a couple thousand member companies, but 95% were 25 employees or less. And that's who we are. You could probably say, 80% are 10 or less. But we need to do everything we can to encourage entrepreneurship, encourage risk-taking, encourage startups. Because when you look at, I talked about Apple, when you look at Steve Jobs, that's what America is to me. It's about starting in the basement and creating millions of jobs or thousands of jobs, as Steve Jobs did. And that's the environment that we've got to try to help foster and create in Washington as well. Let me just say in closing that it's been a tough 2 or 3 or 4 years for a lot of people. Like I said, I've been in business for a long time, but I talk to a lot of business people. This has been a tough 3 or 4 years. But I was giving an update to the Florida Chamber the other day, their board of directors. They'd asked me to do something in a conference call, and I did. And I was listening to the person before me, and he said Florida's expected to grow, what I understood him to say, 6 to 8 million people in the next decade. So I'm very bullish when I look at Manatee County really down to Naples. I think we've got as good of an opportunity as anywhere in the country. When Money Magazine came out and they said Sarasota, Manatee County is the best place, #1 place to live in America, I believe that. And together, working together, we can even make it better. And I'm very, very bullish on the next 5 or 10 years. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.
At this point, we still got some good amount of time for questions and answers. So we have a microphone over here, and I would ask you if you have a question for Congressman Buchanan to please step up to the microphone. Just so you know, that microphone is for METV because they're recording this, so it's not going to go through the PA system. But still, if you would please step to the microphone and speak your question into the microphone. Thank you.
I want to be careful of what happened to Senator Rubio with his water, so But anybody has any questions, I do want to, again, tomorrow, if you get an opportunity, I know everybody's busy with their lives. If you're around at 10:30 tomorrow, you got an hour. It should be very interesting to see what people have to think about Syria, because it's going to be, I'm hoping it'll be focused primarily on there. That's the input I'm looking for. But any questions or comments? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Nancy Ambrose, and I'm from Holmes Beach. I'm beautiful Anna Marie Island, and I'm a proud volunteer of the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network. I just flew in from Washington, D.C., where I was there for 5 days working with congressmen and women, and I talked with Shane in your office about issues that are important to cancer patients, cancer survivors, and their families. Will you co-sponsor H.R. 1666 and 1339, which deal with palliative care? And for those of you that don't know what palliative care is, most people think it's end of life or hospice care. Palliative care is for anyone diagnosed with a serious illness, any age, any illness, and it starts at the day of your diagnosis. We've proven that it lowers the cost of your treatment, you get well faster, and you stay well longer. Will you support those two bills and co-sponsor them?
I probably would, but I'll tell you what, I'll give you an answer today. I need to look at them. We get a lot of bills. There's a lot of bills filed.
Absolutely.
But we'll get you an answer today. I'll talk to Shane. Sally's here.
Right.
And let us get your number, and we'll get you today and let you know.
And I did leave a packet of information at your office on the Hill on Tuesday, so it should be there for you. Hopefully, it's a bright red packet. And I have one other question. We are hoping that you will stand with us and start a bill in the House to raise the federal tobacco tax by 94 cents. We have found here in Florida, when we raised it by $1, it was incredible, all the things that happened because of it. It would show that right now, in our estimations, 1.74 million of our youth would not start smoking. That would be 1.74 million people that would not face a tobacco-related illness and death. 2.6 million adults would stop smoking, An astronomical $65 billion in long-term health care costs would be saved, and at a time when the budget is so tight it would raise $78 billion in revenue. Would you support that?
Let me take a look at it. Again, where does the money go? To the federal government?
Right.
Okay. Well, again, let me take a look at it. I'm not a smoker. I've had my assistant passed away with lung cancer, her husband. I know it takes a gigantic toll, but again, let me just take a look at that.
And I'm going to give you a button today. It says cancer. I'm sure everybody here in this room has been affected by cancer, but I'm going to cross out the CER because together, Representative Buchanan, if you work with us, we can make a difference in the fight against cancer.
Well, thanks for all your help. Let's give her a round of applause.
Good afternoon,
Let me just
Vern.
say one thing in talking about, on the way coming in, the impact of federal government, and maybe you never thought about it or maybe you have. When we did redistricting, we all have about 700,000 people. I have one of the oldest districts, 65 and older, 200,000. 55 and older, 300,000. But of those 200,000, the Medicare dollars that come in here, Social Security money, veterans benefits. So one of the things that we do have a pretty broad base of federal dollars. We probably get more federal dollars than almost any congressional district in the country. My committee oversees Social Security and Medicare. That's why Ways and Means has such a huge impact, not just on our district, but on Florida, because we have disproportionately a lot of people looking, they love the Sunshine State, to retire out of the Midwest or, the East or something. So I brought that up, someone asked me about it, but it is huge. We got a very big base, and they buy services, go to the restaurants and a lot of other things. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Vern. My name is Jim Hoy. I'm a local businessman in Bradenton area. And I, too, want to ask Vern to co-sponsor a bill in the House, and that's H.R. 25, the fair tax bill. Most of America is starting to wake up to the fact that the IRS is not our friend, and the only way to get rid of them is to pass H.R. 25, which abolishes the IRS and repeals the 16th Amendment. And that's in your committee right now, hopefully for debate very soon.
Well, I appreciate that. There is a lot of support on H.R. 25, and let us continue to talk about that, but I know that's something that's being considered. Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Buchanan. My name is Patricia Kent. Sure, I'm sorry. I'm Patricia Kent. I am a practicing attorney here in Manatee County since 2005, and currently, as a sole practitioner, I am a staff counsel at Gould & Lamb, the Medicare compliance company here in Manatee. We are here, as you can see today. We have a number of our management and employees and executive team here today to see you and hear you speak. We're here for two reasons. Number one, Gould & Lamb is the third largest employer in Manatee County. Big employer, and we are well known here.
How many employees, just out of curiosity?
Currently 200, and I'll look to our CFO here, Mr.
Okay.
220 employees. And we are a nationwide and actually international company, but we are home-based here in Bradenton. This is our home base. Secondly, we are here, as you just spoke about, we are a Medicare compliance company. We make sure our clients, who are primarily insurance companies, TPAs, attorneys, are Medicare compliant when they have a settlement, a workers' comp settlement or liability. Thereby, we make sure the Medicare trust fund is protected and preserved. As you know, it is spiraling downhill day by day. As you said, you have 25% of people here in Manatee and Sarasota County currently who are Medicare beneficiaries. And by 2050, Medicare has projected that will be 33% of your people here in Manatee and Sarasota. So it's a very important issue, as you know. We are at Gould & Lamb aware that you are involved in a number of bills around the Medicare issues. We have in the past and recently asked to meet with you to help you and provide input. We feel that Gould & Lamb is in the trenches literally day by day. We have conversations with CMS, with Medicare, with the Medicare secondary payer contractors every day. We are down there, we're doing the work. We would like to provide input to you, for you, help you with our experience that we have and what we know about the business with what you're facing in your job with Medicare. As I said, we've asked in the past to meet with you. You have graciously given us time with a couple of your staffers. We appreciate that. However, we think this is such an important issue, we would like to personally meet with you.
I'll commit right now. We'll set up a meeting because I'm on the subcommittee for health. Subcommittee for health oversees Medicare, and I'm the only one in Florida that does it.
Excellent.
So I'd be glad to meet with you. I know that you've talked to Sally and some others, and
Yes.
she's very competent, but I'll be glad to sit with you. And I'd like to, because I don't have all the answers. Medicare is very complicated. I get, today I get a call from a doctor and an organization in Miami because I've got the point on the subcommittee for health. So if you've got some good ideas or thoughts that'll help us be more efficient or make sense, I'm very open to it because, again, you've got a lot more expertise on it than I do.
Excellent.
So, yeah,
Thank
so
you.
just see Sally and we'll set up a time, okay?
I have a question, Congressman Buchanan. You know that the internet sales tax has been an issue here in the state of Florida, and my thoughts are in my business, we ship things out of state, and the way it works is people that are out of the state, they have to comply with their state sales tax laws, and I don't really see how it would work with, if I were to have to collect sales tax on things that I ship out of state and then distribute it to every state that I ship to, it's just not realistic. I believe there should be an internet sales tax, but I think it should be a national internet sales tax. And talking about just how complicated the tax code is, if you think about it, the UK, for example, and I know Canada has a value-added tax, which is much higher than our sales tax, and they've got, I think in the UK it's 17%, and I think Canada is something very, very similar to that. And so my thoughts along those lines are, if we had a higher value-added tax or even a flat tax, it would be great if we could just have the flat tax and do away with our income tax, and that way it would be a consumption tax, and people that are in the higher income levels, they make more money, they're going to spend more money, and they're going to be taxed more. So what are your thoughts along those lines?
Well, I think they were talking a little bit about the fair tax. I mean, that's a structure where you eliminate the tax system as we know it and come up with some kind of a percentage. It's revenue neutral, but maybe it's 18 to 20% on products, whether it's a loaf of bread or a car or something else, and there's no exemptions. So there's a lot of different tax strategies out there. In terms of the internet tax, we've looked at it. There's a lot of people in general, the public, don't want the idea of an internet tax, but everybody's buying more and more on the internet. Our kids, they played football here locally, and it wasn't because they were trying to save the 6 or 7%. It was because the convenience would show up in front of the house the next day. So it's something we need to look at. And of course, large retailers or retailers, they have the other side of the coin. They just don't. They think that everybody should pay as they have because they've got the investment in brick and mortar. So I've seen both sides of the argument. There'll be something that'll be brought forward, I think, in the maybe next year, or in my sense and timing on this. And it'll be looked at, but I'm not. I kind of want to wait and see where we end up on that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
But
very
thanks.
much. Do we have? Certainly, we must have some more questions for Congressman Buchanan.
Hi, I'm Valerie Vale with Manatee County Medical Society. As you know, October 1st is when the exchanges are supposed to be opening up for people to investigate and check into potential insurance policies through the Affordable Care Act. It even came up in June when we were trying to get the half-penny tax passed that people seem to think that they are going to have access to health care and it's going to be very affordable, when in fact it's probably going to be $4,000 a year on the low side for many people. So when people go into these exchanges looking for premiums, I think they're going to be shell-shocked. Has there been any conversation in Congress or with your peers as to how that will be approached to the public to educate them and help them navigate through that process?
Well, they claim there's a lot of different processes that are out there, but a lot of us are concerned about how this gets rolled out or when it gets rolled out. There's a lot of uncertainty. You know, I got to tell you, I've looked at some of the various websites, and I have some uncertainty about it. But my biggest concern about healthcare and healthcare in general is just the cost of healthcare. It's not unusual where I go to, and I think the exchange, if you're making enough money, I don't see where it's going to cut anybody's healthcare costs. Where it comes in is the subsidies. But when I went to Manatee and did a town hall, this is about a year ago in downtown Bradenton, and a lady said she has 4 employees and she's spending $2,000 a year for her and her family. That's not unusual if you get quality health care or something where they're really going to pay the claims. But it's you know, we need to really think about it's not an easy discussion. The amount of dollars that are being spent are enormous. And so I'm not sure how this is going to roll out. I don't have a lot of confidence in it, but I want to be hopeful that it works. But Obamacare basically subsidizes 30 to 50 million people based on their income. A lot of them are either going to get it free or, you know, or maybe get half of it paid one way or the other. And that's how my sense. Some states, they're more aggressive about rolling it out. I think Florida's got a ways to go. But you know, it makes me very concerned when I see a family of 4. And especially as it relates to a lot of employers, and you know, we've got employees, everybody else, and the cost of health care has gone up the last 3-4 years, 20% a year, 15% a year, and that's with the idea of trying to make some adjustments to hold the cost down. We have to really think the whole health care system, it's completely broken. It's twice of what it should be, and it's just out of control. And I don't think Obamacare fixes it, other than it's going to give a lot more people access to health care, which is going to cost billions of dollars to the taxpayer that we can't afford. So that's just my comment on it.
Thank you.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi, I'm Ron Hurst, and I just want to congratulate you on your staff. I was working with Rebecca in your Manatee office. One of the things that I do is I volunteer at the Just for Girls School, Just for Girls Academy, which opened last year in Bradenton, run by Dr. Jennifer Rosenboom, and they didn't have a flag. So your office was able to get them a flag, an American flag.
Appreciate it, yeah.
So we're very, very appreciative of that, and Rebecca did such a great job. I wanted you to know that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And good seeing you again.
Good to see you.
He's a good friend of mine, so he had to say something nice. Hey, anyway, let me take one more question. I've got about 3 more meetings I got to get to. And just so you know, we do have an office in downtown Bradenton or Sarasota on any federal issues, if anybody's got any issues that way.
Cool. I'll make this brief because I know you'd have to move on. Thanks for your time. I'm David Mercier. I'm with Datum Corporation. We're out here in Lakewood Ranch. I saw a recent report where it said the total payroll for the federal government was somewhere north of 3.5 or just over 4 million, which actually made it more populous than like 20.
Just over what?
Just over like 3.5 million total federal employees, staff.
Okay, yeah.
Whatever the number was, the thing that stood out to me is that made the federal government more populous than 20 of the states, of the 50 states. So with you, with your position, my question is, do you ever feel that the bureaucracy itself, no matter what laws you pass or whatever your political affiliations are, they get moved to this place of implementation that would twist it or otherwise make whatever the good intentions kind of give you some of those bad unintended consequences that come up. I just was curious your thoughts as being there. Do you ever feel marginalized because you have this bureaucracy that no matter what you do at the end of the day, it gets handed off for its execution, and it's not always what you would want?
We deal with that every day. It's a gigantic bureaucracy, 3 million people. My biggest concern, whether it's in the state of Florida, local governments, anything, whatever the taxpayers send you, make do and make the tough choices. But it gets back to that. It's just, I see secretaries come in. I happen to be a good friend of Mel Martinez. When he became secretary, he brings himself and a couple of people, and he's got a gigantic bureaucracy in the HUD, Secretary of HUD. And that's true of a lot of the new secretaries that get appointed. They're kind of out there in front of the camera, and they've got 2 or 3 people they dribble in with them, but they got 10,000, 100,000 employees, like Secretary of Commerce or something like that. So there's no question that they have a lot of clout in terms of the direction. It's hard to turn that battleship. If you want to put it in perspective, another way to look at it, we spend $3.6 trillion a year. The state of Florida, I think it's $75 billion or so. We're 50 times bigger. That's part of the reason we're up there as much as we are, because you've got they've been averaging about $3.7 trillion a year that they've been spending. This year we'll have a record revenues. The good news is, if it is good news, we're, instead of overspending the budget $1.3 trillion, it'll probably be $600-700 billion, but it's still $600-700 billion too much. And I think we need to continue, as most governments and most people, the way they run their business or families, not spend more than we take in. Again, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, we just want to say we really, really do appreciate Congressman Buchanan taking his time out of his busy schedule to come and address us. And yesterday, I was fortunate enough to sit in on a conference call where Congressman Buchanan was taking calls from his constituents, and that's just evidence, like the meeting tomorrow, that Vern really, really does listen to his constituents, and basically he serves the district. So a big round of applause again for Congressman Buchanan. Thanks again to our sponsors, Kaiser, Mosaic, and thanks again to METV and the Lakewood Ranch Country Club. And we are adjourned. Thank you.